While your day is winding down, they're just getting started. This is South Coast Tonight with Chris McCarthy and Marcus Farrow. They've got you covered on all the news of the day, from local issues to politics on both sides of the aisle. This is the place where the movers and shakers come to be heard, to listen, and where they're held accountable. This is South Coast Tonight on WBSM.
Back to South Coast Tonight. I'm Chris McCarthy. Of course, as always, Marcus Farrow is here as well. Tonight, we're joined by the Honorable Mayor of Attleboro, Paul Heroux, who's running, of course, for sheriff. He's a Democrat nominee, successfully defeating two people in the primary. He's here to take your calls. We're going to go right to the phones. 508-996-0500. Marcus?
Good evening. You're live with the mayor.
Hi. Good evening. My question to the mayor is, in the past, you had voted in to cut correctional facility budgets. In that, one that it would affect is the Ash Street Jail in New Bedford. Do you still feel that this is necessary? And as it would fall in the city of New Bedford, they would be responsible for all their prisoners, which would affect their depleting resources already.
Okay. Thank you for this question. I really appreciate this because you have been disinformed by Sheriff Hodgson. I did not cut funding, for the Department of Correction. That's not what the vote was, and he knows it. What it was is the Republicans put up...
Your time as a state rep?
As a state rep. What the Republicans did was they put up an amendment to the budget to add $5 million to DOC funding. They wanted to add $5 million, but they didn't answer two questions. They didn't say how they were going to pay for that $5 million, and they didn't say what that money was going to be used on. They just put it up there. So I didn't vote to cut $5 million. I voted against adding $5 million. There is a qualitative difference. And what the Republicans would often do at the State House is play games. And, in fairness, is what Democrats do down in Alabama and Mississippi, where they're the minority. So what the game is called spotting. They put up an amendment to something that, the majority party has to vote against because they have to act responsibly. And so what they do is they say, okay, I'm going to be facetious for a second, and I'm going to make something up. I'm just a totally made-up scenario. So the Republicans add an amendment to the budget to fund the cure for childhood cancer for $2 billion. All right, so now every Democrat looks at that and says, oh, my gosh, if I vote against that, I'm going to look terrible in my district because I'm voting against the cure for childhood cancer, and funding it. But then they all know we don't have $2 billion. So they basically, the Republicans say, hey, you can go ahead and vote against that. We know it's not going to pass, but go ahead and all of us are going to vote for it. So we look like heroes, and you guys are going to vote against it. And that, in fairness, that's what the Democrats do down in Alabama and Mississippi, where they're the minority. But the fact is, Hodgson is disinforming you. Misinformation is accidental. Disinformation is intentional. I did not cut $5 million from the budget. I voted against adding $5 million because there was no way they didn't explain how to pay for it, and they didn't explain what it was going to go for. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
508-996-0500. We got one line open right now. Good evening. You're live with Mayor Heroux.
Yes. Good evening, gentlemen. Mayor Heroux, I'd like to know what you are proposing to do for the safety of our seniors.
Yeah, great. Okay, so
thanks for the call.
Yeah, so there's a number of things that we can do. First of all is to make sure that the programs that we're offering in jail actually work, and that's something the sheriff is not doing. He has no idea if the anger management program is going to rehabilitate people who are violent. He has no idea, and those people are coming back into the community. He has no idea if the drug treatment programs actually work, and so I think that's just awful. That after 25 years, he has no idea if he was measuring these programs and they worked, he'd release the data on that. He doesn't have the data. He doesn't measure them. So that's the first thing. Aside from that, there's working to advocate for the basic, like I did as a state representative, to make it against the law for financial exploitation of senior citizens. In Massachusetts, financial exploitation of senior citizens is not against the law. It's different than fraud. But this is actually very frustrating. Quinn and I actually worked together. When I was a state rep and he's the district attorney, we worked together on advancing legislation. And unfortunately, the state house, it didn't move. It's very frustrating. Like 90% of bills don't move up there. So that, that's also, really important. So there's, a lot of different things that, the sheriff can do directly as a supervisor of the jail, and then also in the capacity as an advocate. So there's, any number of things that can be done. I'm certainly open for ideas. If you have concerns, then, again, if I can address it directly as the supervisor of a jail, as the CEO, as the sheriff, we can do that. Or you can use that bully pulpit as a politician, which the sheriff is.
508-996-0500 is how you can get in the program. Good evening. You're live with Mayor Heroux. Good evening. You're live with Mayor Heroux.
Hi there. Thank you for taking the call. So I just have a question. I've heard Mayor Heroux mention that, it's time for a change, that the current sheriff has been in office for a long time, and it's time for a change. Now, I'm just wondering, and I could be wrong, but in Massachusetts, we have a long history of long-serving sheriffs, one of those being Sheriff Ash out in Springfield. He was sheriff for like 40-something years. The Boston Globe, when he retired, did a big piece and all of, on him. And does this apply to somebody like Sheriff Ash as well, or is this just a political statement?
No, Thanks
for the call.
Sorry, Marcus. I very strongly believe in term limits for executive capacities, mayor, governor, president, sheriff, anybody who's in an executive capacity, because the concentration of power in that one person over the course of time can be very problematic. When I ran for mayor, I told the people of Attleboro that I will serve 2, maybe 3 terms, and now I'm in my 3rd and final term. And I've also pledged to serve no more than 2 terms as sheriff. I don't want to be sheriff for life. I don't want to be mayor for life. Hodgson definitely wants to be mayor for life, and I don't think that's healthy. I think it's definitely time for change. I've knocked on a lot of doors, and a lot of other people feel that way as well. But, that concentration of power, I think, is unhealthy when it's all in one person in an executive capacity. In a legislative capacity, I don't feel the same way. For city council, for state house, for the, it's just, you have the power is spread out among all of the different people. And I know a lot of people say, we should have term limits definitely for folks in Congress. When you have term limits, then you destroy the institutional knowledge. And, I think that could be a little bit problematic. And in fact, in California, we know that when California implemented term limits for its state legislature, that actually destroyed the institutional knowledge and opened up the way for lobbyists to have a lot greater influence. And that's been a big problem. But, I very strongly believe in term limits for executive capacity offices. Yeah, very, very strongly.
So, Mayor Heroux, I want to give you a chance because off the air, you took umbrage with an ad that Tom Hodgson's running right now that talks about your position on sex offenders, and you're pretty passionate about it, and I appreciate that. So I want to make sure I give you an opportunity to explain your side of that. You have spoken out in favor against bans on sex offenders at a public library.
I didn't speak out against a ban on. What are you talking about?
At the public library?
I don't know what you're talking about. I think you're putting words in my mouth again.
Again?
Is he talking about the...
Well, I'll read you the article then. I thought it was an established fact, but it said...
is everything you believe, everything you read, true?
Well,
so,
he's clearly...
Are you talking about the 2011 presentation?
Yes, okay. That's what he's talking about.
So what did you say then?
So I just asked people to watch my video. Watch the entire...
Okay, but for the sake of the radio, people can't watch the video right now.
So that presentation, very simply, the city council presented an ordinance, and a Republican city council member named Bill Bergevine invited me to, actually he and I met at Morin's. He said, hey Paul, you work for the Department of Correction, you were research director, and you've written several articles on keeping kids safe and sex offenders. So we met, we had a 90-minute conversation at Morin's, and he said, Paul, I think the city council should hear what you were saying about this. And so I went to the council, and what the council was proposing is to ban level 2 and 3 sex offenders, or maybe just level 3 sex offenders, from going into places where kids would congregate.
It was 2 and 3.
It was 2 and 3. Okay, sure. 2 and 3. So, I basically said, go ahead and pass it. It's not going to do anything. I didn't speak for it or against it. I just basically said, this is not going to keep kids safe. And let me explain why. Sex offenders who target kids are typically pedophiles. And a pedophile over the course of time develops a relationship with a kid, and they groom that kid, and they then violate that kid's trust and the family's trust. But so I said, so what you're doing is you're targeting, isn't going to actually address their behavior. And so here's what you can do. Then I went in to explain what we can and should do to keep kids safe. And so, but I didn't speak for or against it. I just said that wasn't going to keep kids safe. It was kind of like
since you've characterized me as putting words in your mouth, I'll describe to you from the article. The city council vice president, Walter Thibodeau, he said the issue of molestation is personal. He asked you if you were a sex offender or represented a prisoner advocacy group. That's one of the city councils who heard your testimony. And so certainly he feels like you were advocating on behalf of sex offenders. Okay. That's a weird question, right?
Not really, because he has a really fragile ego. And so what I did was no, he does. I know him. Okay. And he's got a very fragile ego. And I basically burst his bubble that this great idea they had was nothing more than a placebo pill. It wasn't going to keep kids safe. It wasn't designed to keep kids safe. It was a feel-good measure. They wanted to take some action, but they didn't actually consult experts on it. And later, they passed it, okay, and that's fine, but we haven't actually kept any kids safe. And his point of when he actually started yelling at me, and later he apologized, and then later he also attended, when I became a state representative about a year and a half later, he attended a forum I had on keeping kids safe, and he said, Paul, this is a really good forum. But one of the, when he was, kind of barking at me and he said, if it keeps just one kid safe, it's worth it. To which I, didn't as eloquently as I will right now explain. I said, at the time I talked about statistics, but let me just say, if a program works, it's not going to keep just one kid safe. It's going to keep a lot of kids safe. That's what a program works. That ordinance that they passed, it's not keeping anyone safe. It's a feel-good measure. If you want to really keep kids safe, parents have to have a conversation about good touch, bad touch. And we have to also train parents and educators on what the warning signs are for when kids are showing, that they are being abused. That's and said that we can stop that. It's not taking for granted the people that we are trusting our kids with. So I didn't speak neither for or against that proposal. I said, look, you go ahead and pass it. I don't care. It's not going to keep kids safe, though. There's nothing in it. And I explained what would keep kids safe, and I explained how pedophiles worked. And I had identified myself as somebody who worked in jail and worked in prison. And so I had an expertise in this. And so, like I said, with fragile egos, they were very upset that I kind of burst their bubble. And, but later that same city councilor apologized in that same evening. And he also attended a forum I held on keeping kids safe in January of 2020.
I think we get a clear picture on your take on that, and I want to get back to the phone. So, sure. Good evening. You're live with Mayor Heroux.
Hi, Paul. This is JT from Attleboro. I just wanted to say that I just started following you, and I know you from Attleboro, and this is kind of one of the first times I've actually listened to the radio station, and I've been following you for maybe about a few months now, and all the things that you've been doing for the community and everything is just great. And I just want to say that I'm a really good supporter of you running for sheriff, because I was there when Hodgson came in and changed everything all around. And I'll tell you, man, it went from, it's bad enough that we're in there doing our time, missing our loved ones, our children, our family and everything. Then they started taking away our TVs, our radios, the things that keep us occupied and our mind busy. And you're talking about reform, and I'm all for the whole reform thing, because we need more educational programs inside these correctional facilities. The only thing that I think we had going for us was basically school and HVAC, and whenever we worked in the kitchen for good time. But if we had more people in there trying to teach and educate people about, maybe do some electrical classes, some carpentry classes, some bookkeeping, some basic life skills.
Listen, I appreciate your perspective. Do you have a question for the mayor?
I'm sorry. I guess I really don't. I just wanted to say that, I love you, Mayor. I'm proud of you, but grab what you're doing, and I appreciate everything that you're doing for our community, and I'm forward for the whole reform thing, man. Keep up the good work, buddy.
All right. Thanks for the call.
Thank you.
508-996-0500. Good evening. You're live.
So I'm concerned about what I've heard around Hodgson and how much the sheriff's office is wasting money on things like a position that's just a driver for him personally, a chief of staff, positions that just don't exist at other county sheriff's office of this size. Vehicles that he has.
Is there a question for Mayor Heroux? Sorry, I have to cut down the preambles. I've got a lot of callers.
My question is, what would you do differently to cut down on the spending that is the money that's being wasted from taxpayers?
Thank you very much for the call. Appreciate it.
Okay, so thank you for that. There's a number of things that are going on that are wasteful. I run a city that has 500 employees under me, and and that's not including the school department. We actually had a small conversation in the commercials about how the budget is under me, responsibility for the budget, but not operational, control. So, but basically, I don't have a driver, I don't have a chief of staff, I don't have a public relations person. I am all three of those with what I do, and I run an organization that's $165 million, which is larger than the sheriff's organization, the Bristol County Sheriff's Organization jail, and I have just about almost as many as employees. I would expect that when elected, a lot of people are going to leave. And, a lot of the senior people who are just loyal to Hodgson, they just don't want to work for me. I would expect that to happen. That frees up money to, put towards things like better and more like drug rehabilitation programming or anger management programming, which I've heard over and over again that really isn't going on there to any serious degree. So the budgets reflect priorities. And I say this all the time. We can afford anything, but we can't afford everything. And what we spend our money on is a reflection of our priorities. And so, one of the things I did when I became mayor is I didn't just come in and just start cutting things and start changing things. I took the time to learn the organization, because I come in with a mandate from the people, which is a general direction that we should take the organization, whether it's a city or in this case, the sheriff's office, a county jail system. But you have to learn why things are the way they are and then work in the mandate that you've come in elected by. So you don't just go in and start changing things right away. And, but like I said, budgets reflect priorities. I've heard there's a lot of chiefs there, a lot of patronage positions, and I'm not just making that up. I think the Boston Globe said it was, the third worst organization in government in the state for patronage positions. They said that a number of years ago. So, like I said, a lot of folks are probably just going to leave, and that'll free up money.
So so you're counting on people leaving when you get elected?
No, I am. Yeah. No, I am. Because it's like, as funny as that might sound, but there are some people who I know are not going to want to work for me because they're just loyal to Hodgson, and then that's an opportunity through natural attrition to look at whether or not that position's actually necessary. Another possibility that we can do, another thing we can explore, is just reallocating the budget and the resources. So I don't just say to people, "Hey, we're just going to cut your position. You're out of a job." Sorry. We say, "Okay, we're restructuring, and you're going to have a job over here for you, but your position is now terminated. There's no longer a chief of staff position." I'm just making that up because I don't have a chief of staff running a city. And so then that frees up money to reallocate. And if that person wants to participate in some type of other activity that's a higher priority, then that's fine. Otherwise, I think I've said.
Yeah, so we're actually going to take a break because we got full phone lines. We got a commercial break. If you're on the line waiting patiently, we appreciate it. Continue to wait patiently, and you'll talk to Mayor Heroux after this break.
Yes.
Hey, we got full phone lines, 508-996-0500. Good evening. You're live with Mayor Heroux.
I wanted to see if the mayor could clarify. I know you guys already went over the child sexual abuse, situation, but it was left that he said there are programs that can help train parents to help their children avoid good touch, bad touch. I want to know, even though I realize, yes, oftentimes it is somebody who's groomed a child, had access to a child, and it's not always a random, stranger danger. I want to know still if he believes there should not be restrictions put on level 2 and 3 sex offenders in places where children, come together in a community. I'd like to know that.
All right, we got the question.
Okay, so first of all, this is going to sound kind of crazy. It doesn't really matter what I believe because the state Supreme Judicial Court has already come back and said that putting those restrictions on is unconstitutional. And, I'm not defending that. I'm not supporting it. I'm just saying it is what it is, the state Supreme Judicial Court.
You also don't have any control over it as sheriff.
Yeah, you don't have any control over that as sheriff anyway.
Okay.
But aside from that, one of the things that I'm looking at now with our school department is we're going to start looking at facial scanning recognition, so it can scan people who are known to be on the sex offender registry, because around a school that I believe that is permissible, and I'd love to put that in a school if it is permissible. I want to operate within the law. But as far as somebody going into the library or a park where kids might congregate, the state Supreme Judicial Court has already ruled on that, and they said it's actually not constitutional. I do think that the Sex Offender Registry Board, the SORB, should be reformed, because actually the Sex Offender Registry Board uses about 25 different variables to determine if somebody's level 1, 2, or 3. And as crazy as this is going to sound, you can actually have somebody who's a pedophile and be registered as a level 1 sex offender. Actually, you don't even register as a level 1; you're categorized as that. So that, to me, that somebody can be clinically diagnosed as a pedophile and not be like a level 2 or a level 3 and actually be listed as a level 1, says to me that the SORB, the Sex Offender Registry Board, needs to be reformed to make it a little bit stronger and better. So what my opponent is doing is he's basically trying to use fear, and he's fear-mongering to say, oh my gosh, Paul is, it's going to be soft. I take a very professional approach to it. I work within the law, and I advocate for what works. And there are some things that people can say, we should do this, but that's not going to do anything. So what I recommend people do is look at what the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children recommends to how to keep kids safe. Use their guidance, or check with New Hope, which is located up in northern Bristol County, and it might be down here in southern part as well. They also work with that, but it's it's not something that we should use emotion to guide our decisions. Emotion should help us be aware that this is a real serious problem, but then we have to use really strong, effective solutions, not just reactionary solutions.
Good evening. You're live with Mayor Heroux.
Hey, how's it going, gentlemen?
Good.
Quick question. So, I believe it was one of the debates, and that's why I'm calling in now, where Mayor Heroux had discussed how he would basically kind of fire everybody per se, and kind of,
I didn't say that.
But you just elaborated on it, basically how you would eliminate positions or people would quit and so on and so forth. As someone who works in public service, I think that's a slap in the face, because it's like you're talking about people who are, putting their lives in danger every single day.
Okay. Do you have a question for the mayor?
So can you elaborate on that? How are you going to build morale among people who work under you? You're talking about being a leader, but that's kind of not leadership qualities if you're just going to make people who have worked there 20-something years of their lives and given up.
All right. So first of all, you got it. Thank you. Appreciate the call.
I think you're confusing what George McNeil and what I said in the debate. George McNeil talked about getting rid of, and actually Nick Bernier, I believe, talked about it as well. But I remember it more clear with George. They talked about just cutting positions and getting rid of positions. I very clearly just a few moments ago said that I'm not going to get rid of any employee. Every employee will continue to have a job if they want a job. What we might do is restructure some positions. Obviously correctional officer is not something that we restructure, but there are some positions, if they're just management level position that is overseeing another manager who's overseeing a couple other managers, and that happens in a lot of organizations. That's the sort of thing where we can restructure and repurpose the employees to do other more meaningful tasks. That's something that I've had a lot of employees who are current employees come to me over the last several months and talk to me. They also went to George and they went to Nick, and we're all hearing the same things. I have to take, admittedly though, I have to take that with a grain of salt. Are those employees disgruntled employees? Were they passed over for a promotion? Were they actually, reprimanded by a manager or supervisor recently? So even though people are coming to me and telling me all these horror stories about what's going on inside the jail, and I listen to those and I appreciate those. I also, as an experienced manager myself, as mayor for the last 5 years, I also understand that there's sometimes another side to the story. But no, I'm not. Anybody who is currently working there, when I get there, they will continue to have a job under me. Some people might choose to leave on their own, and that's fine. But like I said, restructuring of priorities and creating new positions and terminating old ones. And if somebody doesn't want to take one of the new positions, that's fine. But they will have, like a leg up on other people because I value that institutional knowledge.
Good evening. You're live with Mayor Heroux.
Good evening, gentlemen. Mayor Heroux. Spent a lot of time on the sheriff's tie, and you've been demanding an apology for that. I'd like to know if, based on the video that I watched of you in front of that city council, where you said that sex offenders weren't going to be hiding behind bookshelves and jump out and assault a child. That happened in New Bedford. We had a child raped by a sex offender that was hiding behind a bookshelf. So I'm wondering if you would apologize to that now young adult for giving bad information, because it does happen, and or would you apologize to the family or the police officer that investigated that case?
Right. So the statement, I didn't say it doesn't happen. I said it doesn't typically happen. Okay. And I was aware of the case that happened here in New Bedford, and that's part of the reason that the Attleboro City Council wanted to put this ban forward. That was a high-profile example of, a sex offender reoffending when they're in society. But a high-profile example of something happening is high-profile because it's unlikely. That's the definition of why something becomes high profile. Because it doesn't. If something happens all the time, then that's usually something that people have become accustomed to. Regardless of what the issue is. Now, so I think that what happened to that young child when that happened, who's now a young adult, was just awful, and the child safety ordinance that the city council in Attleboro was proposing wouldn't have kept that child safe, because the Supreme Judicial Court has already ruled that it is not constitutional. So it actually can't be enforced. So we have to look beyond what is emotional and what's visceral and actually look at what works to be effective, because people's lives are on the line. The quality of their life is on the line. Even if they don't lose their life, the quality of their life and how it could be destroyed and disrupted for years to come. And so that's why we have to actually put the emotion brings us a sense of urgency, but we have to actually use what works and what and put that emotion off to the side and to really be effective. I know it might sound kind of sterile to talk about it in this way, but I want to make sure that what we do is going to deliver results. And that's why I'm asking people to look at it objectively. Again, the emotion brings it to our attention. It rises the importance of the issue, but we shouldn't make decisions based on that emotion.
Good evening. You're live with Mayor Heroux.
Good evening, gentlemen. Mayor, I'd like to ask you a question about the grants. You said that you don't accept all the grants. There was a grant that was given to Hodgkins for the jail, and I asked him personally over BSM what he did with the money, and I wasn't too happy with the answer. And I also got the papers right in my hand. Got sent to me.
So do you have a question for Mayor Heroux?
Yeah, I'm going to that. The question is there a way that you can siphon the money from the grants? In other words, do things with that money that's not supposed to be done, like put it in your campaign fund and different other things. I wasn't happy with the results, and I'm looking forward to you becoming the new mayor.
The new sheriff, you mean?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. Is there any way you can embezzle public funds? I guess is the question. I don't know.
I can't speak for what happens.
I love the caller. Sorry, I just don't understand the question.
I think I understand the question. It's the misuse of it's taking grant money and then misusing it somewhere where it wasn't intended. So we get a grant for, I don't know, painting walls. But then we take that money for the grant for paint. I'm just making something up. We take that money for the grant for painting walls and we replace ceiling tiles. So we misuse that money. And so that's just, As mayor of Attleboro, I can tell you it's literally impossible for me to misuse or misappropriate money because we have an independent auditor who reports to the city council, not me. And I actually never have a chance to even touch money or to issue checks or to write checks or to, spend. I'll sign a contract, but the contract is approved. So that's at the city level. I don't know what the process is in the county jail system here. I've heard a lot of stories. There's a number of those news articles that have been out where, there's money that was supposed to be returned, or it was supposed to be. Well, Marcus, you look like you actually know what I'm talking about.
I think. I'm not sure. I kind of want to ask another question besides county finance. I don't know. Is there something? Did you have something?
No. Go ahead and answer the question for him.
No, I don't know. I don't know what
help him out.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't
know either.
I don't
know what the caller was talking about.
I don't know. I don't know.
I think I got what the caller was talking about. It's the misappropriation of money, but
I get it. I just want to move on because I don't think it's productive for either your campaign or
Hodgson's. A lot of speculation with that. I can only talk about what I do as mayor, and there's no opportunity for me to do as mayor. But in the sheriff's office, I don't know the structure of the house.
Mayor Heroux, there's some calls on the line, and just hold on. I do want to ask a question because I want the opportunity to ask this question, and I don't know if I will. So I talked to Sheriff Hodgson last Wednesday. We talked about recidivism, which is the rate in which basically people reoffend and will end up back in prison. I had cited the DOC report that you cite a lot in your campaign, saying Bristol County has the highest rate of recidivism, which means the highest rate of people basically going out from his jails and reoffending.
It's actually going out from the prison system, not the jails.
Sure. Okay. Going out from the prison systems and reoffending. He says that that's not an accurate representation of how effective his programs are because it's not Bristol County, the Bristol County Corrections System. It's actually just people who have an address in Bristol County. Mm-hmm. And he also said that there's no way to track whether how effective county jails are in, or there's no way to track recidivism rates for county jails. Is that true?
No, it's not true, because I actually did it when I was working in Philadelphia. I looked at 235,000 admissions and releases over the course of a 7-year period of time. And, like in Essex County here in Massachusetts is actually doing their own recidivism reports. So we can and should measure what our rate of reoffending is, recidivism.
So Essex County is that the only county that's doing their own recidivism reports, or is everybody else derelict in the Commonwealth except for Essex County in measuring recidivism in their jail?
Don't know what the other 11 counties are doing. The other jail systems are doing. But
sure.
I know Bristol County is not, and I know Essex County is, but I don't actually know about the others. So we can and should do that. I was a statistician. I was chief statistician in Philadelphia Jail. I was director of research in the Mass DOC. It will happen under me. We'll do it fairly quickly. You can actually look at, how many people are going out using the BOP, how many people are coming back in. BOP is Board of Probation. You know that for the purpose of the listener. But, the DOC looks at what the rate of recidivism is for people going out of the Department of Correction and then coming back into the Department of Correction. And it's all the same system. We just have to do it at the state level. But I wouldn't stop just looking at the rate of recidivism for the county jail. We also need to look at what programs work. That's a lot more technical. If I can go like full nerd for a second, it's looking at the rate of recidivism at the county jail is a descriptive statistic. Looking at whether or not a program works is an analytical statistic. We have to apply a formula, so there's a slight difference there. But that's where I have a skill set, and the current sheriff doesn't.
Okay. 508-996-0500 is how you can get on the program. Did you have something you wanted to say?
You said it a couple times, though. You were a statistician in the jail.
Mm-hmm.
So you weren't really in the administration of the jail. You more supplied information to run the jail.
I worked with the administration. I was an administrator, like administration. Like, did I run the jail? No, I run a city, and but I worked in jail and I worked in prison. That's more corrections experience than Hodgson had when he became sheriff. When he was appointed, I also have a lot more management experience than him, higher level of elected experience as a mayor and a state representative. So, I mean, if you're wondering, he didn't really have any corrections experience before he became sheriff. And, but I worked directly for the commissioner. I was special assistant to the commissioner for security and population analysis. I was not, as the sheriff likes to say.
You weren't Dwight Schrute?
I don't know what Dwight Schrute is.
You ever watch The Office?
You never watched The Office?
No, I don't.
Come on, man.
Oh, all right.
No, I don't have much time. My brain only has so much bandwidth, and I can't spend it watching TV.
Hear that, folks? you idiots watch TV. He doesn't.
No, that's not what I said. I said my brain only has so much bandwidth.
I know.
It's limited bandwidth. It's actually the opposite of saying that.
That's not true. You're a smart guy.
So what the heck were you saying?
So he was saying that the sheriff's been saying that you were basically an administrative assistant.
Yeah, that's just okay. So he is.
You didn't really get your training at Starbucks. That's not true, right?
My training at Starbucks,
meaning that you weren't fetching coffees.
No,
that's the question.
No, I produced one of the largest recidivism reports ever.
I'm going to teach you jokes.
Well, you will once you make funny ones.
There you go.
See, now you got it. That was good.
All right, hey,
that was good. That's Harvard Lampoons right there.
Yeah, I was a statistician and a chief criminologist at the Philadelphia jail system, and I was director of research and planning at the Mass Department of Correction. And I worked directly. I was in the senior level management meetings with the commissioner and his deputy commissioners. He had 4 of them, and actually 3 of them plus one who was, but then also with all of the wardens. We didn't call them superintendents there. We called them wardens in Philadelphia. And in Massachusetts, I was a mid-level manager. I had 14 people, 13 or 14, depending on, what month it was, working under me, but they're all research staff. There was, but the mid-level manager, was I running a prison? No. Was I, emptying trash barrels or, no. I was a mid-level, but that is, again, it's more corrections experience than Hodgson had when he took over. And I also worked as a consultant with a lot of different jails and prisons.
So none of the callers brought this up, and I know you guys are on the line waiting patiently, and I appreciate it, but you're going to have to wait a couple more minutes because I want to ask about the suicide that happened on Ash Street. Now, you cited this. I brought it up to the sheriff, the high rate of suicides in the county jails. He acknowledges that that high rate, that number exists, but he says, basically to his critics, they have to tell me what exactly we're not doing, and they won't be able to because we're doing everything. In your opinion, is Sheriff Hodgson doing everything to prevent suicides? What more could Sheriff Hodgson do to prevent suicides at his facilities?
2 things that I talked about earlier in the program. Number 1 is change the culture so it gets away from being a culture of hopelessness as inmates to that when I am locked up, the jail system here is actually trying to set me up for success, not just, if you don't like it here, don't come back. So it's really focusing on discharge planning to give people a chance to get back on their feet. A lot of people who are in jail, we talk about giving people a second chance. A lot of those folks never had a first chance. And, a lot of people are just in there, they participate in the revolving door. And so we have to, set them up with discharge planning, not just let them out at the local mall and say, good luck. So that's the part of it. The other part of that is also making sure that we are addressing their mental health needs, their substance abuse needs, their addictions. I shouldn't call it needs, substance abuse addiction. That way when people go back into society, they have a chance. Otherwise, when they're locked up, they have that sense of hopelessness. So that's one aspect. The other element is when you have somebody who is SMI, seriously mentally ill, and they've indicated that they are going to be a harm to themselves, they should be on an eyeball watch, which is a 24-hour watch where it's not 15-minute intervals.
Well, so he said that he got the guy that committed suicide in Ash Street was actually cleared for police custody, so he didn't have that label. Do you think that should have happened anyway?
I haven't looked at the case, but it's clear that not enough happened because we had another suicide. And, when I don't know the details well enough of that case. I haven't looked at the file, but
sure.
We have another suicide. And I'd also like to point out, though, that, he took a swipe at me and said I acted opportunistically when a tragedy like this happened. I didn't. I didn't do a press release. I thought about, whether or not I should do a press release, and I said, no, I don't want to appear to be acting opportunistically. I never reached out to the press. The press reached out to me.
You responded to a request for comment.
I would respond to the request, but I never actually was trying to capitalize on that tragedy. And but he accused me of doing that, so once again, he was wrong.
All right, hey, we got to take a break. If you're on the line, stay on the line. You can talk to Mayor Heroux after the break.
1420 WBS.
Good evening. You're live with Mayor Heroux.
Is this me, guys?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good evening. Mayor, you made mention, kind of in passing, kind of a vague referral of a Globe article that talked about patronage, particularly at the Bristol County Jail. My question is this. It's kind of two-part. First, tell us about how you were fiscally responsible and saved some money as mayor. Because just as a basis.
All right, two-part question. No preamble. Two-part question.
The first one is tell us what you did fiscally to save money as a mayor, and then as sheriff, if you save some money, will you return that to the state legislature at the end of the fiscal year?
Thanks for the call.
Okay, so the difference between saving money and not spending money. First of all, but as mayor, okay, we have had 5 balanced budgets with no layoffs. We have I've basically more than doubled the city's stabilization. We have $7 million in city stabilization. When I took over as mayor, it was $2.9 million. So it took 114 years for the city to develop a $2.9 million stabilization, which is a savings account. In about 4.5 years, I brought that to $7 million. We built a $260 million high school on time and slightly under budget. I haven't lost a single lawsuit as mayor. So I haven't we haven't had any payouts or anything of the sort. I haven't lost a single ULP, unfair labor practice, and those are 2 things that the current sheriff cannot claim. He has lost lawsuits and he has lost ULPs, which are very costly. We switched over all of the city lights to be LED lights, which is saving a lot of money on electricity. There's a lot of different things that, I could keep going on, but I hope you get the point, though.
We get the point.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we've done, that,
You cited some good examples. So the second question, I guess, are you going to return money to the state legislature, which I'm going to guess no?
No, that's,
Because, who would do that?
You better not. John Saunders will be mad at you.
No, exactly. If you're not, budgets reflect priorities, and I want to reallocate a lot of the money that is not being efficiently spent on, whatever. I hear stories, but I don't.
By the way, that was a member of the legislature who asked that question.
Was it?
No.
I was going to say.
That's funny. That was funny. But basically.
Now I'm working to earn his praise.
One Heroux approved the joke. Yeah.
No, but we basically, anything left over, we shouldn't have it left over. We should be diverting that towards treatment services or better salaries for correctional officers, hiring more correctional officers. So we shouldn't be left over with anything.
All right, got to take one more break. Thanks for waiting patiently.
1420